So, Your Honor, I know these are felonies of the 5th degree. I know that they are nonviolent crimes. I believe that presumption for probation is overcome in this instance based on everything that you've heard, based on the fact that this was a school resource officer who came in contact with dozens more people every day than most police officers did. There's something sacred about the public trust and the badge that is sincere and it's not trite. And this is not the kind of conduct that we can ever endorse or allow our police officers to continue. Thank you, Your Honor. We ask for incarceration.
Thank you very much. On behalf of the defense.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good morning.
On March 25, 2025, former Rocky River police officer Michael Bernhardt was indicted in the Cuyahoga County Court of Common Pleas on 13 felony counts. Bernhardt was a police officer for 30 years. He was also a school resource officer at Rocky River High School. The officer parents trusted to keep their children safe. Between 2013 and 2023, he used restricted law enforcement databases to illegally search the private information of 77 people. Most of them were women and girls. Many of them were students. He pled guilty to 3 counts. 10 were dropped. The case was tried before Judge Timothy McCormick, with Mary Grace Tokmenko appearing for the prosecution and Michael Lear for the defense. What you are about to watch is his sentencing hearing, and what 3 of his victims told the court that day changed the judge's mind about whether this man belongs in prison. For over 30 years, I sat on the bench. A school resource officer is supposed to be the safest adult in a child's life. When that officer uses his badge and his database to target the students he was assigned to protect, every part of that trust is destroyed.
Counts 1 through 3, unauthorized use of property/computer system. Those are all felonies of the 5th degree. On behalf of the state.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good morning, and may it please the court and opposing counsel. We are in receipt of the pre-sentence report. We are also in receipt of the defense sentencing memorandum, which we have reviewed. To begin, I'd like to thank the investigating agencies, the Ohio Bureau of Criminal Investigation and the Rocky River Police Department. This was a long investigation that required a lot of tedious database matching, checking, a lot of paperwork, a lot of review. Between 2013 and 2023, Michael Bernhardt, who was a Rocky River police officer, abused his access to law enforcement databases. 2 different databases, databases that withheld private, very personal information, identifying information about people, social security numbers, residences, vehicles. The prosecutor's office decided to categorize the victims, and that's how we designed our indictment. The original 13 counts reflected categories including individual victims, families, his family, Rocky River police officers, Rocky River teachers, and others. Your Honor, police officers receive training on OLEG and leads from the minute they go through the academy, the restrictions that apply because this is such sensitive information. They have to do annual certifications, they have to take tests. This is not something that someone can miss or not understand. Every time a person logs into OLEG, they have a specific identifying ID, and they also have a specific password. Your Honor, our office annually prosecutes a handful of police officers for these kinds of violations. However, this particular case is by far the most egregious that I've seen in both the number of violations, we had over 70 conservatively over the course of this 10-year period, and in the undercurrent of the case, Your Honor. It's unlike any case I've handled.
The prosecutor just called this the most egregious case of its kind she has ever handled, and she handles these cases regularly. Police officers have access to databases that contain everything about you: your home address, your social security number, your vehicles, your criminal history. Only sworn officers can access them, only with a personal login, and only for a legitimate law enforcement purpose. They are trained on this from the academy. They certify every year. Every search is was logged. Bernhardt knew exactly what he was doing. He did it 77 times over 10 years, and the people he was searching were not suspects in any case. They were students at his school, their parents, their boyfriends, his fellow officers, his ex-wives, and their families. There were so many victims that the prosecutor organized the indictment by category.
And so I have three individuals who would ask to address the court. If it pleases you, I would ask that they would be permitted to come to the podium, or is that all right?
Well, that's fine.
Okay. And I will have them introduce themselves.
Good morning.
Good morning.
This is new technology, by the way, and it's really not very
Fantastic.
conducive to courtroom statements. But go ahead. Say your name for the record, please.
I'm Courtney Steppen,
Good morning.
a student at Rocky River High School in the early 2000s. I graduated in 2004.
Go ahead.
Thank you for hearing my statement. I remember the first time I met Michael Bernhardt at the Rocky River Public Library when I was about 14. We became fast friends, and I was flattered that a police officer like Michael wanted to be my friend. I was not popular, lacked friends. I was in the chess club. His attention made me feel seen and special. As our friendship progressed, I spent more time with him while he was on duty, even shadowing him on a work day through the school. It was a fun day. We drove around, sped around, flirted, and in the future he would look up my friends and their boyfriends, teachers, and even families of my bullies to give me the tea on all their drama. He was always there to help me with my hellion siblings, covering for them and keeping them out of trouble. When I got my own car, it became easier to spend time with him, and our relationship turned physical when I was 16. And at this point, I genuinely believed that we were soulmates and kindred spirits, and he used to tell me all the time that when I was older, I would hate him. And after his first wife discovered some phone records and confronted us, Michael disappeared from my life for a while, and I was devastated. In my brokenness and confusion about my future, I decided to join the military. Coming from Rocky River, where going to college was the norm, and having no real military experience in my family, this was a drastic step. Though I had hoped running away to the military would break the bond I had with him, it did not. Michael came back into my life immediately when I got out and moved back home, and I continued to see him even early into my adulthood. He always seemed to know where I was and would frequently show up around my friends and family's homes and my jobs. When I learned he would be the new resource officer, a deep down fear told me that he would be finding young girls there. But to my greatest shame, I did nothing. Then the story broke about him and this newer young girl from Rocky River High School, and everything kind of hit at once. I knew I had to do something and had to atone for my silence for so long, and it scares me and fills me with guilt to know what my inaction may have led to. The impact Michael has had on my life is too vast to convey in a single statement. To sum it up, he robbed me of so many experiences I should have had organically growing up. I would have never joined the military, never saw the things I saw or did the things I did at war if it wasn't for him. I probably would have done the regular path, gone to college, had children, but now I realize that I was always so afraid to have kids because of the monsters I saw in the world, monsters that he helped me see early. I am consumed with guilt because I didn't come forward even when so many adults who suspected something, other police officers, teachers, librarians, they asked me and I lied. For him. The realization that I am a victim has shattered my world. I hate to hear the word, and I keep on hearing it. I have so many memories with him that are now stained with the knowledge that I was taken advantage of. And now I have nieces who are reaching the age that I was when I met him. And I think about how unprepared they are to make the decisions that I made. And it terrifies me to think he will be back out there free, especially now that he knows that I've come forward and where everyone I know and love lives. But Michael was wrong when he told me that I would hate him when I was older, because I don't hate him, and that's not why I'm here today. I'm here because I know from experience that he cannot help himself. So I've come to ask you to incarcerate him. That was my statement.
Thank you very much for coming forward. Good morning. State your name for the record, please.
I'm speaking on behalf of my granddaughter.
Very good.
I am here to speak about the impact this case has had on my life. I met the defendant when I was a high school student. He was the SRO at my high school. He was an adult in a position of authority, and any friendship between us was inappropriate because of that imbalance. At the time, I did not fully understand the boundaries, though he should have, that existed, or the seriousness of that imbalance, but I trusted him. What has caused the most lasting harm is learning that during this inappropriate friendship, the defendant used his access to a law enforcement database to look up a member of my family. That action permanently changed how I viewed my safety and privacy. Knowing that someone who already held authority over me also accessed confidential law enforcement information about my family made the situation feel overwhelming and unsafe. It crossed a line that should never be crossed. It caused fear, anxiety, and a feeling that my private life and my family were no longer protected. This misuse of the database was not separate from the friendship. It intensified the harm it caused. It showed a disregard for boundaries, for the rules meant to protect people, and for the impact such actions would have on someone in my position. Even now, I struggle with trusting authority and feeling secure. This has stayed with me far beyond the time period in which these events occurred. I ask the court to consider the seriousness of an inappropriate friendship combined with the misuse of a law enforcement database and the impact that has had on my sense of safety and trust of law enforcement. Accountability matters, not only for me, but for protecting the integrity of systems meant to serve and protect the public. Thank you for allowing me to speak.
Thank you for coming forward. Good morning.
Good morning, Your Honor.
Could you state your name, please?
I am the mother of one of the victims.
Very good. Go ahead.
Your Honor, I stand before you today not only as a mother whose child was harmed, but as a parent who trusted the systems meant to protect our children, and watched that trust be violated by someone who wore a badge and carried authority. What my daughter experienced did not happen in a vacuum. It happened because Michael Bernhardt, the defendant, believed he was entitled to power he did not earn and to people he should have protected. He misused his position as a police officer and a high school resource officer to gain access, control, and information, not to serve the public, but to serve himself. This case is simply not about database violations. It's about the abuse of authority. It is about predatory behavior hidden behind a uniform in the walls of a high school. The toll this has taken on my daughter is profound and lifelong. Before this happened, she was confident, trusting, and secure in the belief that adults, especially law enforcement, were safe. That belief is gone. She will never trust in the same way again. Every interaction with authority now carries fear, doubt, and second-guessing that no young woman should have to carry. She's suffered anxiety, loss of safety, and betrayal. She has had to reconcile the impossible, that someone whose job it was to protect students instead used his power to violate them. That kind of harm does not fade with time. It settles deep and changes who you are. This has devastated our entire family. My husband and I lie awake at night wondering how we did not see this sooner, how we could have ever protected our child from someone who had access, training, and credibility backed by the very system that we trusted. Our home was once a place of ease and certainty. Now it is a place of vigilance. My father was a police officer, Your Honor. I was raised to believe in the duty, honor, and accountability. Law enforcement is not just a job to our family, it's a sacred responsibility. They take an oath. Officers are granted extraordinary access and authority because the public trusts them to use it lawfully and ethically. When someone betrays that duty, it harms not just one person, but the integrity of the entire system. What makes this especially painful is that this defendant has shown no remorse to our family. Michael Bernhardt believes he did nothing wrong. He believes he is above the law. Even after his actions were exposed, he confronted his victim, showed up at my place of employment where he knew he would see me and my family. That was not an accident. That was intimidation. That was control. That was another reminder that boundaries do not apply to him. We also learned after the fact that this was not the first time. Discovering that he had engaged in similar conduct with another high school student years earlier was shocking and devastating. It confirmed our worst fear. This was not a mistake. This was not poor judgment, not a one-time lapse. This was a pattern. This is why he so desperately wanted to be a school resource officer. Predators rely on silence, they rely on authority, they rely on people believing that nothing will happen to them. Michael Bernhardt will not stop unless there are real consequences for his actions. Accountability matters, not just for my daughter, but for every student, every family, and every community member who deserves to trust the people sworn to protect them. And yet, Your Honor, I want the court and everyone in here to hear this too. My beautiful daughter is strong. She is resilient, she is courageous beyond her years. She spoke up, she told the truth, she refused to be silenced. We are a strong family. We will not allow his actions to define our daughter or diminish the incredible young woman she is. We are immeasurably proud of her strength, her character, and her determination to move forward, even when the cost has been so very high for her. But strength should not be mistaken for lack of harm. The damage is real, the trauma is real, and justice matters. I'm respectfully asking you, the court, to impose a sentence that includes jail time. I believe incarceration is necessary in order to hold him fully accountable for abusing his position of authority and to make clear that his behavior will not be tolerated. Jail time is not about revenge for us. It really is about responsibility, consequences, and protecting others from similar harm. Without meaningful consequences, the damage he caused continues, and the message sent is that victims must carry the burden while offenders walk free.
What you just heard goes far beyond database searches. The first woman who spoke told the court she met Bernhardt when she was 14. He was a police officer. She was a student. She described a relationship that began as a friendship and crossed serious boundaries by the time she was 16.
As she just said, while a lot of the crimes that we see in our courts are about one bad decision, one loss of a temper that crossed the line, this was a course of conduct, Your Honor. This was going on over years and years. This was an abuse of his authority and his access. And, Your Honor, I handle white-collar crimes and nonviolent crimes, and I know we're talking about a nonviolent crime technically here. But the impact, as you've heard, on these victims and the other dozens of victims who I've been in contact with is profound. They're asking themselves, why me? Why is he looking up my information? That's a question they're never going to have an answer to. Another one is he going to use this information? And as defense mentioned in his memorandum, we have no evidence that the defendant has used any of this information beyond just the initial access. However, as anybody who's been a victim of any sort of cybersecurity hack knows, that kind of questioning, fear, doubt is absolutely as profound as being a victim of a violent crime. As they mentioned, and I just want to emphasize, police always have a power differential on civilians, and it has to be that way. But this was a dynamic that he fostered. He was able to use this information to give himself an up and more power over these individuals. And I would argue that it was a different kind of use of force that he exhibited. So, Your Honor, I know these are felonies of the 5th degree. I know that they are nonviolent crimes. I believe that presumption for probation is overcome in this instance based on everything that you've heard, based on the fact that this was a school resource officer who came in contact with dozens more people every day than most police officers did. There's something sacred about the public trust and the badge that is sincere and it's not trite. And this is not the kind of conduct that we can ever endorse or allow our police officers to continue. Thank you, Your Honor. We ask for incarceration.
Thank you very much. On behalf of the defense.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good morning. May it please the court, Michael Lear on behalf of Michael Bernhardt. Your Honor, I have reviewed the pre-sentence investigation report. There was nothing inaccurate in that report. Moving on to sentencing, Your Honor, I want to discuss and start with purposes and principles. Sentencing, as the court knows, the overriding purposes of felony sentencing are to protect the public from future crime by the offender and others, and to punish the offender using minimum sanctions that the court determines accomplish those purposes without imposing an unnecessary burden on the state or local government resources. Your Honor, with respect to the first purpose, to protect the public from future crime by the offender and others, as the court knows in the pre-sentence investigation report, there is a determination that Mr. Bernhardt is low risk of recidivism. As I pointed out in our sentencing memorandum, Your Honor, there's a report by Dr. Mark Levinger, and he also found very low risk of any sort of reoffense by Mr. Bernhardt. Your Honor, I would ask the court to take into consideration the fact that because Mr. Bernhardt is no longer a law enforcement officer, as the court knows, he served Rocky River and Sheriff's Office for approximately 30 years. He was a law enforcement officer for that whole period of time. He has no prior criminal convictions. This is the first time that he's been in court charged with a crime, Your Honor. So with respect to that low risk of recidivism, low offense to reoffend, the fact that he is no longer a law enforcement officer, these charges, these convictions were under circumstances that are not only unlikely to recur, but essentially impossible to recur. He's not a law enforcement officer anymore, and by virtue of his conviction here, he can no longer ever be a law enforcement officer. With respect to that second purpose of felony sentencing, Your Honor, to punish the offender, the court has to use minimum sanctions that the court determines accomplish the purpose of punishment. And I would say, Your Honor, that Mr. Bernhardt has been significantly punished by the charges, the public humiliation. He's no longer a law enforcement officer, can no longer be a law enforcement officer, and he's been punished. This conviction will carry with him in the future, Your Honor, beyond what the court can do in terms of punishment. He's going to have to live with this conviction forever. He was working part-time at Frontier Airlines before he was indicted. Because of the indictment, he was placed on leave. He cannot return to Frontier, and that is a punishment as well. So what he was doing, again, retired from law enforcement, working for Frontier, won't be able to do that going forward. I would ask the court to also take into consideration that Mr. Bernhardt has accepted responsibility. He came into court, pled guilty to these 3 counts. He's fully accepted responsibility. I disagree with some statements that he is not remorseful, Your Honor. He has been in a position where he can't really express remorse until now, and he will do so, and he will offer an apology. He's been very remorseful to me throughout my representation of him. So, Your Honor, Mr. Bernhardt is 55 years old. He has 2 grown children. He does have a very strong support system, Your Honor. He has 5 people that are here in court with him today in support of him. His brother, David Bernhardt, is here. His girlfriend, Vicki Rice-Liver, is here. His uncle, Robert Miller, is here, Your Honor. He's a retired chief of Parma Police, and he would like to address the court. I'll circle back to that in a minute. His godfather, Carl Ulag, is here. He's also a retired second sergeant from Rocky River. And a friend of his, Larry Salter, also a retired lieutenant from the Rocky River Police Department. They're all here in support of him. So, Your Honor, I would ask the court to take all these factors into consideration, including the fact that he has a very strong support system, that he has already been significantly punished, and I would ask the court to impose a sentence of community control sanctions. Your Honor, as I indicated, Robert Miller would like to speak to the court. He will be brief. He did write a letter, and I did want to incorporate, and I don't want to repeat everything that's in my sentencing memorandum, but that strong support system is also exhibited by the letters that were attached to that sentencing memorandum. With court permission?
Amen.
Morning, Your Honor.
Morning.
My name is Robert Miller. I am Michael's uncle. I have known him since birth, and I've watched him grow from a young man to an adult and raise his 2 children, who I know he loves very much and they love him. Without having any direct knowledge of the facts of this case, I can only hear to say that I could always trust him and know him to be a fine, upstanding citizen of our city. And I think he does have strong roots here, and I remain available to support him going forward. And I do not personally feel, with all that has happened, that he's a future threat to anyone's society.
Thank you very much.
Just briefly going back to cooperation and acceptance of responsibility. During the investigation, Mr. Bernhardt was approached by agents from DCI, and he cooperated with them. He sat down and answered all their questions. He gave an extensive interview for well over an hour, answered all their questions to the best of his ability, and I think that shows acceptance of responsibility as well and cooperation with the investigation. So again, Your Honor, I would respectfully ask the court to impose a sentence of community control sanctions, and Mr. Bernhardt would like to address the court.
Go ahead, sir.
Thank you, Your Honor. I would like to start by saying I am very sorry for my actions. I realize that I misused a tool that was meant for me to help serve the community and people that I was sworn to protect and serve. And by misusing the database in that way, I've lessened everything positive that I've accomplished in my 30 years of career as a law enforcement officer. I would like to convey my most sincere apology to anyone affected by my actions, and I accept full responsibility for my lapses in judgment, as there are no excuses for not misusing the OLEG database. Moving forward, I will continue to work towards being a better person and father, and I only ask for the mercy of the courts that I may continue to do so.
Thank you.
Thank you, Your Honor.
This is very problematic because you use your position for unlawful reasons, obviously, but your statement of contrition rings hollow. In the pre-sentence investigative report, they asked you for your version of what happened, and you said you did not do anything that other officers were not doing. In other words, abusing the computer system to gain access to people's personal information. That, to me, does not sound like you regret what you did. To say other people did it makes it sound like some sort of justification or minimizing the impact that this may have caused. And that jumped out at me. And I don't know what you were thinking. In fact, I watched your body expression while these victim impact statements were given, and you almost seemed annoyed. That was my reaction. Maybe I read you wrong, but you certainly seemed annoyed. And those victim impact statements, especially the last one, is probably the most moving statement I've heard in 31 years on the bench. And I've heard a lot, and a lot of bad cases, but it was extremely well thought out, coherent, and meaningful and impactful. So for that reason, I thank all of you for coming in here. You know, to everybody in law enforcement, you think, well, it's no big deal. You know, we get jaded working this system because we see so many bad things every day. We see murders, we see rapes, we see felonious assaults. But this is not, as the prosecutor said, a victimless crime. It's real and it's hurtful. One, they think somehow they brought it on, and two, they don't know exactly what you were learning about their private lives. You were basically a voyeur. And you come in here and you have officers who wrote letters of support, and I understand that, but they didn't really know the real you. You basically were living 2 lives. You were the nice resource officer at the high school, making friends with the students, but you were doing it for nefarious reasons. I don't understand why you did it. You know, you're going after the students, but you're also going after other people, fellow officers, your ex-wife's family members. It just didn't end there. So yes, I don't buy your total admission of atonement, and certainly I think the public deserves punishment. They deserve the right to know that you had suffered just like they have suffered. I wasn't going to give you any prison time, but in light of what the impact statements have done, I believe it's justified. So you're going to go. I can't put you in county jail because you worked there. You know, you'll be in the penthouse if I were to give you local time. I'm going to give you LCI 6 months each count. I'll consider judicial shock at the appropriate time. However, you deserve to be behind bars for some period of time, just like these victims' lives have been affected. Sheriff to transport. You'll also have upon your release a discretionary period of 2 years post-release control. Post-release control could involve restrictions on your activities. If you were to violate those, you could be returned to prison for up to 1/2 of your original sentence.
Michael Bernhardt began serving his sentence on December 22, 2025. 8 days later, his attorney filed a motion for early release. On January 14, 2026, Judge McCormick, the same judge who said your statement of contrition rings hollow, the same judge who said you deserve to be behind bars, the same judge who said you were living 2 lives, granted the motion. Bernhardt walked out of prison after 20 days, 18 months of community control, 75 hours of community service, and no contact with victims. So the question this case leaves behind is not whether Michael Bernhardt deserved prison. The judge already answered that. The question is what 20 days in prison says to a woman who has carried what he did to her since she was 16. If there's a case or courtroom exchange you want me to break down, drop it in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and if this is the kind of breakdown you're here for, like and subscribe so we can keep building a more informed audience.